What we're going to do today is we're going to start chapter 5 of the book, and we're going to talk about the abstractions for building software as a service that Rails gives us. So, chapter 4, we talked a lot about the basic patterns of model view controller. And these hold up pretty well, but it turns out that as our apps get a lot more complicated, there are different tools that Rails provides us to follow practices like don't repeat yourself. So let's say that we're working on our Rotten Potatoes app, and today we're going to explore a sort of updated version of that app that has a bit more functionality. We sort of want to do things like, let's say, movie names must be less than 40 characters long so that we don't have, any title stuffing. We could come up with other constraints. We'll see things like enforcing that the rating is a valid movie rating. How could we check for this when there are multiple places in our app that we might write an update or save action for a movie? Do we do it just in the controller? Do we do it in the model? Do we do it, everywhere in the view as the user types in a form that they see updates? How do we make sure that we do this in a place where we have one clear statement of what the requirements of our model are? And so what we can call these are cross-cutting concerns. We have a task like asserting that the length of a movie is within some parameters or that the rating is within some list. We need one logical place that we can put this code, but that it works across multiple places in our app. So even in the 1960s, programmers had this idea of a go-to statement. And in 1968, Edward Dijkstra, who you may have heard of from Dijkstra's algorithm, wrote a pretty famous paper called Go To Considered Harmful. And it sort of warns you of the dangers of putting cross-cutting concerns into too many places. If your entire program is filled with statements that say go to somewhere else, you can't follow the flow of a program. And so while these technologies and techniques are useful, the goal is to be careful about how we share cross-cutting concerns in our programs. And so the pattern that this follows is a little bit of vocabulary, but it's called aspect-oriented programming. And what we're going to think about is what AOP calls an advice, or a specific piece of code that implements this cross-cutting concern. So we're going to have a little bit of code that says everywhere in our app, we want something to happen. We have point cuts, which are where those advice statements sort of inject their behavior at runtime. So if we say, I want to validate some behavior about a movie, there are multiple point cuts in our app where Rails as a framework injects that behavior. And together, this combo is what we call an aspect, or a behavior of our program that will flow through multiple places in our code. And the goal here is to dry out our code, but to do so in a sort of safe manner. And we'll look at a few Rails examples in the next segment. So Rails provides us through multiple behaviors. And the first one that we're going to see is what Rails calls validations. Validations are a declaration in the model class. So when we talk about a movie, right, it's a Ruby class that is backed by a database table. They're an AOP advice statement in that we'll declare them once in our model, but there are multiple places in our entire code base that we can call that advice statement. So those things become the point cuts. And if we think about things that interact with the database, what would those point cuts be? Well, when we call update or when we call save, those are sort of clear places in our application where we might have cuts that work across our model. But of course, movie.update and movie.save, today in our simple app, those happen only in the movies controller. But as our app gets complicated, they could happen in multiple different places. And so having a framework that says no matter where I update or save or interact with this movie, the validation holds will be useful. And so we'll see a little bit about what that looks like.